Good morning, everyone. I hope that you all are enjoying your breakfast, and there'll be more time to talk right after our presentation, but we are going to get started. Feel free to please continue to get up to get coffee or continue getting some breakfast while you're here. We really appreciate you coming. I'm Erin Newhart. I work in the Alumni Engagement Office, and we are really pleased to kick off this next season of the Business Indicator Series. This is the 9th season had, and this would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. So we have Bellwether Community Credit Union, who sponsors our Manchester series, and then out on the Seacoast we have the Letty Group that sponsors our Seacoast series, and we're really thrilled and thankful that they renewed their support for this year. Just a few quick updates for those of you who haven't been to campus recently. The weekend of May 13th, 14th, we just held commencement. Over that weekend, we had 4 different commencement ceremonies and receptions, and welcomed around 4,000 alumni to the Alumni Association. Beyond that, our projection for the annual graduation rate is around 14,000 people. So we are growing really, really rapidly, which is awesome. You might have noticed that we have some construction going on campus. So just to give you a quick update, we do have the North River Road is being worked on to grade that down a little bit. We also have, you may have walked by our new residence hall that's going to be going online this fall. And then beyond that, on Victory Lane, we also have our new athletic complex that is scheduled to be open later this fall, so we're really excited about that. The athletic complex will have a home for our track and field teams, as well as our soccer teams and other teams will also be able to play there and be a part of that, which is awesome. Finally, we have CETA, which is really exciting for us, both our STEM programs online and CETA, which is our College of Engineering, Technology, and Aviation, which is just starting up. Those plans are really coming full circle, and they're ramping up very quickly over the summer. So some of that will be from our Daniel Webster partners who will be coming over, and then we also have new students who will be entering into that program as well. So this morning, I want to introduce Sophia Costa to you. She graduated with her MSOL, Master's of Science in Organizational Leadership. She, in 2006, she also works here as a lecturer, a faculty member in the Organizational Leadership and Business Department. This morning she's going to be talking with you about #empathy, #2017, the new trends in leadership. And just as if you received a program, or if not, I'll refresh you on why you all are here to talk about this. In an age of hashtags, trends, and social media, could empathy be the key effective transformational leadership and meaningful business practices? Empathy is called the hottest trend in leadership, and companies are training their executives to use more empathy in the workplace and implementing the use of customer empathy maps to better connect to customers. This session will give participants an opportunity to discuss strategies, tools that can improve organizational performance. So I will turn it over to Sophia, and I think that she has a pretty interactive opportunity for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And it worked, and I remembered. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. This is different for me. It's definitely outside of my comfort zone because I've never done something like this. So thank you, Erin, and the whole alum office for giving me this opportunity to do something outside of my comfort zone. So you all have little cards there right next to you. I would like for you to take a moment and just complete the sentence. Empathy is. What do you think empathy is before we start talking? In your own words. It doesn't have to be something long. How would you complete that sentence? And Erin, I think has some pens. Do you need any pens?
You're kidding me?
No, I'm sorry. Thank you, Erin. If you weren't prepared, this is going to be an interactive session, and it's not just going to be me talking up here. We're going to have a discussion. I'm not here to lecture today, so just letting you know. All right, if you're finished, I'm just going to come around and just pick up some of the cards randomly. There we go. Thank you. You feel like you're taking a test, huh?
I know. Man, time to Google it.
Well, we're going to talk about. Oh, okay. You just made me look at it too, so I know where it's from. All right, I'm just going to, before we go to the cards, today we're just going to talk about empathy in general. We see empathy in different forms, in different industries, in leadership and management, social media. We're going to talk about some companies, what are they doing in order for them to practice empathy more, and what are some of those companies that are on the top of the list, and which ones are kind of sliding down. And we're just going to talk about some practices of how we can incorporate more empathy in our daily lives, at our workplaces, with our family or friends. And at the end, I'm going to share an empathy map that may be useful for you in your workplace situations or even your own life. So, empathy is, I'm just going to read off some of the cards, and we'll definitely collect all of them afterwards to kind of share. It's understanding. One was for the birds, and one was something with others. I'm sorry, I can't understand that. Empathy is understanding. Thank you. Thank you. Identifying with others. Thank you very much. Empathy is understanding a person's situation and having compassion for them as a person, walking in someone else's shoes and understanding how they feel. Understanding is compassion. Wow, you guys have me speak. Appreciation, understanding of others. Empathy is caring for others in a meaningful, genuine way. Empathy is having understanding for others in their current situation. And I'm sure that if we were to tally up and read all the cards, pretty much everybody has probably used the word understanding, right? It's going to be probably one of the key words. So according to Enrique and Lewis, empathy is the capacity to connect with others, their experience, and experience their emotional state, understand them better. So while researchers are gathering data and all that, they've been talking about empathy, and it was interesting for me to research this topic because it opened up my eyes to a lot of perspectives that I was not really familiar with. So first of all, I have to put my Greek plug here. I'm Greek American, so I want to start with the word, right? Empathy, where did it come from? So, first of all, we know the words empathy and sympathy. We use them very much in our English language. They're Greek, they're of Greek descent. But funny enough, they don't mean the same thing in the Greek language. So that's what kind of made me look into the words a little bit more. When we talk about empathy here in the English language, we definitely are talking about understanding others, right, and how they experience certain situations. Whereas sympathy, it's more understanding, it's the feeling sorry for somebody else, feeling that we exude when somebody's going through a really tough time. Empathy has a long history in psychology and other sciences, and it's also defined as a general capacity to connect with others' emotions. Now, most research is just focused on the negative, right? On how is somebody not feeling well, or how is somebody feeling when they're grieving or going through a tough situation. But research now, researchers are trying to actually focus on the positive too, because it's all about how somebody would be feeling discomfort that most research is focused on. So going on, I have a little task for you, and we'll do it by tables. So we have 4 questions on the board. This will be tabled, the first table. You'll be discussing, can there be too much empathy, and we'll report back. So I want you to get to know who you're sitting with, start having this discussion, and we'll talk about these questions in about 5-10 minutes. Why do people lack empathy? We'll have that table at the back. All right. Can empathy be legislated? That will be this table over here. What are the most popular areas, industry sector, that empathy is actually considered in the day-to-day operations? And we'll have both of these tables talk about that. Okay? So I'll give you about 5 minutes just to kind of get to talk about it per table. I'll be coming around. Yes. All right. So I'm sorry if we're going to put a little, we're going to start talking about these. So I'm sure I went around and heard some really great chit chat going on. You guys are talking about these. So how about we share? All right. So whoever feels comfortable from each table will go around. And if somebody wants to find a connection to one of these questions and they would like to add something, please feel free from the other tables too. Doesn't mean that that's only that table talking about it. So, can there be too much empathy?
We said yes.
Yes.
We said yes because, lost my train of thought. Past a certain point at times it cannot be genuine, and also if you're too empathetic, for example, in a business, if someone's going through a hard time and you're like, oh, well, you're going through this hard time so you can get this for free, you can do this, and it's just not, doesn't benefit the business. Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Anybody else?
Prevents you from running your business, basically,
Yeah.
because everybody has a situation. So if you empathize with everyone, you're never going to be successful in your business.
All right, let's go to our next question. Why do people lack empathy? Table number 2. Who'd like to?
Sure. Well, we said a few different things that people lack empathy, maybe because they were not taught to be empathetic. So if you have never seen this, you might not know how to do that as well. That also, like, there's a certain degree of you need to trust the other person to be empathetic with them, so that you know that you're having like a fair conversation almost.
Anybody else would like to add to that? Yes.
I'm just talking, I thought I was unique, but it's amazing as a boss how seldom you get empathy from your employees.
That's a
In other words, it may flow from me to them, from the boss to the employee, but it's invariable, and I think his answer was 100%. There is no flow of empathy to the boss, like, oh my God, he's really got a tough problem.
Well, I'm going to go off script a little bit because you raised a great question, a great perspective. So how can we change that? How can we change that? Or can it change?
I think it goes back to what Holly was saying about trust. It's got to be, you have to develop a corporate culture of a trusting environment.
It has to be said, the company culture, the company values really is mutual.
So organizational culture.
Respect and
But it's hard. You're right. Because it's always, oh, you're the boss. You're Superman or Superwoman, right? Nobody can touch them. Like, they can do everything. They never get tired. They never have problems. They never go through difficult times. It might take time. I don't know if anybody has a success story of having it be the opposite way, having somebody who was important to them where they felt that, yes, they felt that somebody else was empathetic with their situation. But it's something very important to think about. Thank you for sharing that perspective.
We need more bosses in Walmart.
All right, so coming to your table, can empathy be legislated? No. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
It's got to prevent you from running a business, basically the same thing as what we just talked about. There's so many situations out there, and it's going to
across something, and that's why I put it as a question here, and I wanted to share it with you, but I wanted to lead on, because I would have said no right away, but I came across something that I wanted to share with you in the next slide. So what are the most popular areas that empathy is considered and included in day-to-day operations? And it's these two tables that we're taking on.
Health and wellness, social services, education. And then we also talked a little bit about how it could be generational, that it's coming more into the mainstream as a hashtag and a trend, and that it also could have more to do with the global climate.
Did you have anything else?
He said psychiatrists, and I said
Okay.
rabbis and priests.
Okay.
I think you could add undertakers and nurses and doctors.
Yeah.
People that deal professionally with other people must have.
I think that the session today is pretty much done because these are great answers. So I just am going to do a brief overview in how we see empathy in the different industries. So starting with the legislation that we were talking about earlier, medicine, in the medicine field, 36 states have apology laws that prohibit certain statements or expressions of sympathy by physician from being admissible in a lawsuit. Experts in the field say that while the laws may help some physicians feel more comfortable about expressing empathy, they aren't really necessary to avoid lawsuits. Instead, good patient-physician relationships and open disclosure are keys to responding successfully to a bad outcome. I was surprised by reading that there was such a thing, and that's why I wanted us to think about that. In education, Wonder argues that practice of empathy is fundamental, becoming an expert teacher. It starts with the very basics usually when we're in education in order for us to express and actually show empathy to our students by asking simple things like how's school going for you, or how are you doing today. Obviously this is not just in the education field. We can have these questions in other fields, industries. In the banking industry, we could have more guidance. That's what Cohen shared in the research that he's done. Letting the customer know what's going to happen next, asking for permission, understanding where they're coming from. When I was reading about the banking industry, all I could think about would be those I don't know exactly what they're called, the self-operating, when you call a 1-800 number and you want to get to talk to somebody because you've pressed all the buttons that you can, and your attention span can actually take. You're like, okay, can't they understand that this isn't working? It may have worked at some point, but not anymore. Going on to law enforcement and criminology, there has been research where they're trying to actually include more empathy in dealings of dealing with people that have antisocial behavior or have harsh penalties, but still it's at a very, very low level. And then in society, empathy is in many different contexts, such as poverty, homelessness, mental illness, religion, race, and gender. We see that all the time. And last but not least, management and leadership. I've just really left them for the end because we'll be talking more about them. So empathy and management. How can we practice empathy as a manager, as a leader? I started with management, but a lot of the things that you will see on the list and that we'll be talking about are very much relatable to a leader position also. So viewing the situation from the eyes of the employees. Somebody comes up to us and tells us about a problem that they have. Yes, it might be another excuse, right? But trying to empathize at that point may actually help, not having a reaction later on from that employee that will create more discomfort for the entire organization and team. Being objective is very tough, but we have to do it. And by being objective, we're able to manage effectively what's happening and weighing the situation, what's going on at that moment, and analyzing what's going on. So why is this employee acting the way they are, or why is this team not performing up to their expectations? Now, analyzing the factors is very important because it can lead into, as we'll see later on, burnout, for leaders and managers by using too much and having too much empathy. A great example of this is President Lincoln. He had an inclination towards empathy. What happened was he would get so, he would just relate so much with all like the negative that was happening that he would actually get sick for long periods of time. So that would not help him afterwards perform to where he needed to perform. But he would actually feel the physical pain because he was so empathetic. Important to be able to balance empathy, right? We're talking about a manager or leader being empathetic towards employees, but it also goes the other way in the sense of building that culture in order to be able to have employees also be more empathetic towards managers. Again, compassion, fatigue, and burnout, it's a problem. It happens, unfortunately, especially in the helping professions, like the professions that you shared, in the health industry, education, and so on. Anybody that's dealing, basically all industries and occupations that deal with people. So definitely just making sure that we're able to kind of balance and refocus. Important aspect is also to anticipate employee reactions. So when we already know how our employees are, because we've had that bond, we have that empathetic relationship with them, we're able to know or pretty much predict what kind of reactions they might have to change the situations in the workplace. And that actually makes the job a little bit easier for a manager or a leader because they know how to react to these employees and how to deal actually with these situations. Also, empathy in the workplace or in the organizational culture creates pride and the need for affiliation within the company. So when I go to work every day at the organizational leadership department and I have my colleagues ask me, how are you doing today? Or how was that paper? They're being empathic for my PhD that I'm staying up until late. They're being empathic and empathetic with me, with what's going on in my life. So what's happening is it actually makes me feel more proud of being part of that department and being affiliated overall with school and SNU. Encouraging career talent development. This actually means that by talking with our employees and our workplace colleagues, we're actually getting more information about where they want to be, what they want to do in life. And that way, we're actually helping because one of the jobs of the manager is actually to be able to develop that talent and make them get to where they want to be and reach their dreams. Empathy also helps improve communication. That means, again, both ways. By understanding each other more, it fosters that sense of trust and loyalty that communication really brings about. And last but not least, it actually helps managers and employees grow. So just shared with you a list of, I would say, positive things in the workplace that definitely would help an organizational culture if empathy was present. Now, in leadership, I picked transformational leadership because that's where we can see more of the benefits of empathy, and actually empathy is used more by leaders. It enhances engagement, improves team performance, and improves trust. All these are necessary for a transformational leader to truly shed their light and actually support their employees. A leader must have interpersonal competence and be self-aware, have self-control, and have action-based ideas. I would also suggest that when we talk about interpersonal competence, we're also talking about emotional intelligence. That's very necessary in the workplace, especially for managers, leaders. And what happens basically is people mirror leaders, what they do, how they act. Employees mirror managers and their directors and everyone. So it's important to start building that into the leadership positions. So going on a little bit, looking at empathy at a broader level, in the sense of where do we see empathy in companies? It's not just something that I thought was a hashtag interesting word to share with you. It's actually seeing that there is an index that's called the most empathetic companies, if you will believe it, just like we have the most corporate social responsible and the most this and the most at. So on the top of the list, we can see that Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, all technology-related companies are on the #1 spots. At some point,
It's also generations.
what, sorry? Yes? Generational, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Full millennials.
So it was interesting to see that at some point, some of the banks, the Deutsche Bank was,
Can we use an example of a company that's not empathetic?
I will tell you one that actually just slided and dropped from the list is the banking industry because of all the different, actually Wells Fargo was 20th on that list and went down to 130th.
Well, United Airlines.
I didn't check that one, but I want us to talk about that. Yeah, so you brought up a great point. So what's happening in the airline industry? Because not just United.
Rather than Southwest, totally unique.
Yeah, Southwest is up there.
Is it media driven at the moment?
I don't know. I mean, all of a sudden, media's all over it now.
Is it the media, or is the media just responding to passengers, what passengers are putting out there via their own technology?
Yes.
Are we confusing empathy with employees to public relations or empathy toward customers?
Different levels.
I think the line is much more.
I think probably they're very different.
I would say that I would bet that within United Airlines, the fact that they're so lousy with customers. By the way, this is the last couple of months. I mean, 5 years ago, there was a guy who released a video about how United destroyed my guitar that they were going to know.
Yes, I did.
And so I can tell you that I would bet that there's probably not a lot of empathy within the organization that's reflected in how they deal with customers. I'm going to guess. I'm going on a limb on that.
What did the rest of you think? Yes.
I think that situation with United Airlines brings up an interesting point. You know, the question I think the heads of United Airlines are left with is the problem of how do you handle relations with employees who are theoretically following the instructions that have obviously upset the passengers. So you have two levels, groups of people that are dealing with. And I'm not so sure that you can satisfy the public, and keep your employees, totally in line as well. I may be wrong.
No, I was thinking, for example, what does, obviously somebody else came on the plane to drive them off, but I'm just thinking, if I was at that moment a flight attendant, right, or somebody else working for the company, how would I react, or would I react? Am I allowed to react? What happens at that moment? And that's what I thought about when I heard that story.
If you don't follow the rules, you're in trouble.
So I guess who makes the rules, and what have they taken into account when they make the rules? Yes?
It's really interesting with United because it's just a vendor and they realign their values and what they all meant in the face of everything that's happened. They're laughable, and their CEO also was named Communicator of the Year just prior to all this. And when you think about the first incident, it involved it was employee benefits and not allowing young girls with leggings on, and they got a lot of criticism for that. Then the next incident was with the doctor, and the CEO took a while to respond, and when he did, it was in appreciation of his employees doing what he felt was the right thing. And then just, it may have been yesterday, there was another incident with United in which there was a passenger who was out of line for a whole flight from overseas, and the plane stopped just to help the exhausted staff, but put everybody else really in a bad position with their travel plans. So I feel like the CEO is like bending over backwards trying to align the staff, but I think there's a lot of unhappiness there, and they're really what's the company's focus overall? And if employees are in place, they feel comfortable and empowered, then they're gonna show empathy and they're gonna have the trust they can do the right thing for people.
Did you want to say something, Bert?
No, but I think you can have empathy and still hold people accountable. And I think of the advising role. I can be empathetic with a student that's caught plagiarizing a paper, but I have no sympathy. So I think there's a difference here. And I think it comes down to, in the moment of the heat of the battle, you're that stewardess or whatever, you have to make a split-second decision. And the question I always say, what's the right thing to do? Because you are the face of the company. They made some bad choices.
Yeah. And there was another incident that came out with another family. I don't remember which airline it was, or if it was the same one. Another story again of even staff having to wear the new uniforms that actually created, like some of them had to deal with various skin allergies and rashes and all that. So,
Because, Radio Shack a few years ago laid off a bunch of people through electronic media. You got a text message at home, sorry, you no longer have a job, bringing your equipment. Like, that is not being empathetic.
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's almost like getting a Post-it right on the computer. You get your stuff out of it and then in this box. So these are just some of the companies, but it's, I just added there that Mark states that internal culture, just like you shared, leadership, brand perception, ethics, and social media presence actually help companies become more empathetic. These are some companies that dealt at some point with some challenges and tried to change the story, and they did by incorporating empathy more in their design, in their brands. I'm going to share with you the Airbnb. Remember back in the days when it started, we created all those stories of people staying over at other, obviously the various homes, and the owners coming back and finding their place not how they left it, right? In bad shape. So the company, in order to regain that trust, they incorporated more empathy towards the owner, meaning, okay, well, they need some extra insurance on this. So they provided free insurance for the home while they had others stay there. At the beginning it was $50,000 and it went up to $1 million, just so that they can have just free their mind and not have that worry and be part of the whole Airbnb experience. Then we have Facebook. Facebook has an empathy lab. That's actually led by somebody who has been vision impaired for many years. He's an engineer there. And basically what they do is they try to find different ways and incorporate different technology in order for anyone to be able to tag a picture and understand what's showing on the screen at that moment. So you either have a vocal descriptor or you may have something in writing that states what it is in order for people to better understand. I had 2 videos, unfortunately we're not able to see them, but if you want the presentation at the end, we can send it to you because I have the links and they're pretty interesting to actually see and reflect on them. Ford is probably my favorite empathy story that I want to share with you. They actually got their new team of engineers to actually wear pregnancy pillows. So, and they actually had them wear them while they were designing the new cars. Like, I don't remember which model because I didn't find that information, but that actually gave them a sense of how is it, is my back hurting? What's going on as far as space? Can I get into the car? Where do I need to put my mug? Like, does everything work out for somebody? And for other also situations, but they actually use the pregnancy pillow as their showcase of empathy in the new design phase. So both of those videos are available. I couldn't find, they didn't share. They just had Cisco and list. I tried to follow up with some research, but I couldn't find exactly. But I did include it. So is our ability to empathize affected by social media and the internet? We brought it up already. So what do you think? This is an open question. It is.
I think that you have such access to so much information now, whether it be good or bad information, it's out there for everyone to see, and that affects your perception of whatever is going on. So I think that it's huge.
Excellent example, yes, GoFundMe. So yes, social media can definitely build empathy. There have been various studies that actually say, have like various perspectives, obviously. So I'm going to share both. Yes, there's research out there that says that due to the lack of nonverbal cues in the online world, unfortunately, yes, we do have lower levels of empathy in the virtual world, because also, everyone is just seeing like all these various photos and shocking images. So sometimes we get accustomed to that. So it just becomes just another picture. But, and also cyberbullying and bullying, there have been stats that students have actually been bullied online, about 43%, and 53% of the kids said that they've written something mean. Right? And we hear that again with various stories that go up. But to look at it in the positive perspective, yes, social media can build empathy because we have the GoFundMe, we have the donating, we have the liking, the tweeting, all that. So the support, trying to understand. So that definitely shows that social media can definitely benefit in trying to foster more empathy. I just wanted to share also positive computing. I found that while I was researching, I thought it was interesting, by Raphael Calvo and Dorian Peters. So basically, they're designing and developing technology that will support psychological well-being and will improve empathy in organizations. And last but not least, I can't, say it, but we have all these different apps. Ariana Huffington just came out with Thrive, who is all about empathy. If you read the various articles that come out, and also Moochin and Smiling Mind, those are some new apps. So we're seeing that technology is is going to the next level as far as incorporating empathy more in everyday.
Well, could you give me an example of those apps with the legal version? What is it?
So,
I've not seen
well, Thrive is focused just on sharing stories, basically, of understanding others and feelings and all that. So you just become a subscriber and you get every single day, like you get just like another social media. Yes, it's very positive.
Somebody's reading it for you.
Well, it's got Ariana Huffington's name on there, so for me that's that's a branded. Yeah, so I've been following up a little bit on that one, and I do find it that it's got great articles and great shares, and it's not as much. It's not focused like most other media that have like a lot of negative stuff going on. Not to say that we don't have to be aware of it, but I think sometimes the more we just focus on that, that's all we see, and we start forgetting about the positive. All right. So a lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. So this is a different perspective of empathy in the sense of, this was shared by Steve Jobs. This refers more to the fact of knowing what your customer is feeling and what they want before they even tell you something. That's why I'm sharing that. It's just that other perspective. Of course, we always want to know what our stakeholders want and need, but it's also what they're feeling and going through all those emotions. So I want you to think right now, the moment. It could be at work, it could be during your life, where you just felt that you were in a situation where they were just not empathic with you at all. And that frustrated you a lot. And you got to the point where you're like, if I was in that position, I would have done this or that. How did that make you feel, first of all? And how did that change your perspective as far as how you deal with others? Yes?
I'm dying to know if who was here at the university when we had a CHIT food service. Okay, if you remember, there was a disaster want with them, and then sort of cured the whole problem. Because they sold them, they bought them, it helped, because food is nothing but trouble to eat in a college. And here, they make every item in front of you, which again creates empathy as far as I'm concerned.
Well, food especially is like one of the basic needs, right? So even more. I'll share a story with you. I recently bought a car, certified pre-owned, did extensive research on it to get it, a lot of research for months. Checked out dealerships, checked out, the whole feedback pages, how many stars, how was this and that. I did my homework. I bought this car that I liked. Ended up having troubles with it. First time after 2 weeks. Second time after 3 weeks because it didn't pass the New Hampshire inspection. And the third time it left me around Easter while I was studying here. I was doing work at the university. Every single time I would obviously bring it back to the dealership. I did feel that the dealer that I had bought the car from, he was trying his best to be empathetic. So I couldn't just say that he didn't care. On the same level, though, I did get to the point that I felt that the company, the dealership where I bought it from, did not care. So I called up Mazda. I'm like, I can't be dealing with this stuff. What's going on? And it worked to my advantage. So I wanted to bring the negative, but share the positive. I called up and spoke to Telly. I sent him a thank you card too because I was like, you know what? I just felt like this big weight, this huge weight was uplifted. For one thing, I could tell over the phone that he was listening to me, all right? That he was understanding, or he was trained very well to understand me, right? Which is fine, works both ways. As long as he was listening and understanding my story, which was, as you understand, very complicated, to explain to somebody that, your car broke down 3 times within like a 3-month period, and you really didn't, had checked it from a dealership that was recognized and certified by Mazda and all that. So Telly tells me, don't worry, I'll advocate for you. He called up the dealership. Within half an hour, everything was settled and taken care of. Granted to say, it could have been because it was certified, but the company didn't care to really share that and say that, you know what, this is covered. But the fact is that I was in a really, really difficult position, and I was thinking, I'm like, very frustrated. I would never do this to somebody. Like, that's what I was thinking. If I was a leader and I had a customer, a manager, coming back 3 times complaining, for valid reasons and purposes, obviously, I would do something about it because, first of all, it's just not cool. It's a disgrace for the company. Because I could have been a customer that went in and made a scene, right? How would that affect their business at that moment with everybody else that was trying to buy a car? So they didn't even think about that. So I just wanted to share that with you, that it actually had a very positive. Anybody else maybe have a story that you'd like to share? Yes?
I have 2 stories that I think are sort of cute. They sort of hand in hand. These are people leaving my employer. I ran a small business for a while. And the first one was happened at lunch hour. And Susie was our receptionist. Susie went out to lunch. And by 2 o'clock, Susie wasn't back at her post. So we sort of went, where's Susie? We looked around and suddenly someone said, Susie's plant is gone. And we suddenly realized that Susie had left the office and probably wasn't going to return. Well, certainly wasn't going to. So I was a little vocal about this to the other people in the office. About 6 months later, another person decided to leave. And she said, Mr. Barrett, I'll give you 3 weeks' notice. I said, God, that's fantastic. That's really great. Thank you very much, Mary. And she said, good. Now I'm going to take my 2 weeks vacation.
What a frustration.
That's where there was a certain lack of empathy in the situation.
Yes. Yes, Greg.
I did some consulting a few years ago for Lee Harrison. They do a lot of outplacement So the people in the office were being laid off, were yelling, "Don't come here, don't come here," it was terrible. And I thought to myself, how stupid could management physically put two conference rooms side by side, laying off people in one room, and hiring supposedly new hires in the other, being totally oblivious.
As a
It's
result,
very-
as a
very-
result, that's low pay.
So how can we practice empathy?
Show the same dignity to those who are going to be leaving the company as those who are entering the company, maybe?
Yeah. Yes.
Just treat everybody like you like to be treated. I can tell you that every time I call, there's certain jobs that people never hear good things, like customer service, payroll. I mean, they only hear something when they screw something up, you know? And I found that in janitors, you know, everybody you come in contact with, I found that a few nice words, it just not only makes their day, and I'm not intending to get any benefit out of it, it comes back to you tenfold.
Oh, yes.
You know, you get the best customer service. You know, I sometimes somebody will do something on the customer service line that is good, and so after the call, I'll say, by the way, I need to talk to your boss. I want to give you a plug. I mean, normally when someone talk to your boss, they can, but I got this, you know, I want to make sure that the boss knows that it's amazing how much over and beyond they go for, you know. So simple little things make a big difference. It always comes back tenfold.
Yeah. It's contagious, that's what I say.
Yeah.
I used to work at a bank, and I had a customer that called in with an issue, and it took actually quite a few weeks to get it resolved. He all of a sudden had $800 missing from a deposit he had made, and did a whole bunch of research, and we were able to get him his money back. And so he was so thankful that he said he went to talk to your manager and told my manager, you know, how excellent I was through the whole process, and he was so thankful. And I try to do that now. I try to pay it forward when I do have those interactions with, you know, any sort of service person. So, you know.
Yes.
Well, I wanted to,
My turn.
Yes.
sorry.
Let's go to Dawn first.
You know, personally, I look at empathy as the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Just try to remember that they're in a situation. You may not have been in that situation, but at least you could be gracious enough to listen, to have some understanding of what they're going through, and to express that, and to treat them with compassion. So, and yes, we don't live in a utopia, and that can be hard to do. But even if you don't like the person, you can still be gracious enough to listen to them. They have a story to tell, and they just want somebody to be kind enough and patient enough to listen to that story, and not pass judgment.
Yeah. So, I think you pretty much covered a lot of these ways that we can practice empathy. And I'm sorry, Burden, I know there were a couple of hands. Did you want to add something earlier? Yes.
I was just going to say that I think it's really important when you're practicing empathy to be really authentic. And if you take a step back and try to be authentic, you really find the true reason why you're being empathetic, and it forces you to look at that other person a little bit deeper. And I also think that you can gain empathy sometimes by showing empathy almost in like an opposite way, where you're saying, I get what you're, so say customer service, I get this is a difficult situation, I get that you probably have 1,000 calls today, but here's my situation and here's why I'm frustrated. And I think that you can almost get the person to give you empathy that way. Certainly there's going to be people that are like, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So yes, Marianne.
I would also like to, I echo everything that everyone has said and what's on your list. I would also like to add that for me, my challenge is practicing empathy. Also, it's not a challenge so much as being able to practice empathy when I'm outside my comfort zone as well. It's a lot easier for
Right? So just to go through the list a little bit, we talked about listening, waiting to make a quick interpretation, that full judgment that Don shared also. Taking time to speak, actually being able to process what the other person's telling us, what's going on. Being able again to balance and understand what's going on in the situation. Weighing judgment, using appropriate language. There's always appropriate language and also body language, right? The cues, the eye contact, the body language that we use. Paraphrasing communication is very important because that way we actually understand, like we're just clarifying what the other person has shared with us. And also validating the other person's perspective. Now when we talk about validation, it doesn't really mean that you're agreeing with it, with whatever's happening, but acknowledging it more. And just to quickly share something with you that I feel is a great tool for both a work situation, but even for teams, for our lives. This is an empathy map. This is just one of many different tools that are out there in order for us to assess and think of, okay, what's going on, what a customer feel. So this one's a great one that I picked for you because also it's very visual, and the link is also in this PowerPoint, where in colors we can actually try to focus on what our customer or our stakeholders are thinking and feeling, seeing, what are they hearing, what are they saying and doing, what are their pains and what are their gains. So thinking and feeling in the sense of what situation are they in, how would they approach, for example, buying a product? How would they approach being part of the team? What's going on? What do they seek as far as the service or the product that we want to offer to them, or what's going on in the team? What are they hearing? Because we all have those different voices, not our inside voices, but hearing, opinions from people around us, from our families, our friends, our coworkers. How are those affecting, for example, these stakeholders' decisions? And is what they're saying also what they're doing, or what they're deciding upon? And understanding truly what a stakeholder has to lose and what they have to gain out of a whole situation is very important. So by having that visual aspect, especially if you're working with people that like that visual post-it notes and like trying to brainstorm of what could be some of the consideration, is definitely very, very helpful. So in closing, first of all, I want to thank you very much for being empathetic, because this was my first time doing a business indicator series breakfast, and I wanted to close with Alfred Adler's quote: "Empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the eyes with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another." So empathy is an ongoing journey. I don't think it's taught in the sense of getting a certification program or downloading a program. Only obviously it's something that we have to live it every single day. Thank you very much.
We did run a little bit long, but I think the conversation was amazing this morning. So I just wanted to thank everyone very much for coming. Please feel free to connect with each other before you leave. And just kind of a plug for everyone, both our alumni and community members in the room, as well as our faculty and staff in the room, that the alumni office really wants to make sure that we're hoping to engage our alumni and bring them back to campus, have them involved in the student process and the student success. And so whether you are an alum and you'd like to be engaged and figure out a way that might work for you, or if you are a faculty or staff member and you'd love to have alumni in your classes or as a part of your programs, we'd love to help facilitate that. So thank you again so much. We hope to see you in June out on the Seacoast, and have a great morning. Thank you.